How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Dipsticks in a Pod. In this episode, we're going to be reading another story from someone else that I had in a group on Facebook. They've seen my post and they wanted me to read their story, so they sent it to me. But this time, if you guys want to see the story itself being read and you guys want to read it along with me, I am also recording the video version of me reading all of this, so you guys see the document that I have with the story on it, and it's going to be posted on the YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel's link will be down in the description of this very in particular episode. So make sure to go ahead and watch that if it is not out by the time you guys are watching or listening to this audio. Make sure to give it some time and then go check YouTube. It takes a little bit longer to upload videos than it does audio, so just give it some time and it should be up there eventually. So this story is by the Skeptic Metaphysician. So he started out his story like this. I grew up in the suburbs of Connecticut. When I was a much younger man, I was involved in the community theater world there. And one particular town theater had a reputation for being haunted. I'd heard the stories about people running upstairs to the dressing room only to find an apparition in the front of the huge makeup mirror. I'm assuming that's supposed to be mirror, so we're going to head and change that. Finding an apparition in front of the huge makeup mirror, looking at itself while seeming to try to put makeup on. One guy told me that story personally and told me that he came to an abrupt halt, at which point the apparition stopped putting makeup on and looked directly at him. That's all he needed to see, and he took off running in a panic, just as the apparition seems to start heading towards him. I should also mention that I'd never seen it myself. I heard other stories of people that ran across strange artifacts in the woods surrounding the theater. Artifacts that were remnants of Satanism. I always thought the stories were full of crap and never really gave it much thought until one particular summer. I was a punk when growing up and ended up running away from home. When in my late teens, he ran away in one particular summer. I spent my days working at a local department store. Then in the evening, I would hitchhike to the theater where I would attend rehearsals for a show where we're getting ready to perform. I probably should have went through here and corrected some of these things, like some of the words, so I wouldn't get confused. Since I was technically homeless, I would crash at some of the other cast members' homes, usually after we went out after rehearsal to eat or drink something. Then have them take me to work in the morning after a shower, and that process was repeated all over again. Sometimes when cash was flush, I would even stay at a local roach motel that accepted cash from a teenager without question. Well, one night I found myself with no cash and no one available to host me on their couch. So I didn't know what to do. After talking it over with the guy I was doing the show with, and who had experienced being homeless himself, I decided to stay overnight at the green room of the theater. He mentioned the downstairs window lock was broken, and he had on occasion sneaked in after everyone was gone to sleep on the couch there. And I thought this was the perfect solution for my conundrum. He did warn me, though, that he had heard and seen strange things during the night that he had stayed there that he could not explain. Since alternative was sleeping outside in the woods, I felt that his suggestion was a perfect solution to my conundrum, and I decided to have someone drop me off close to the theater that night. After we had finished our carousing at the local restaurant, I don't know what that word is supposed to be, carousing, I guess. After I made my way to the theater, I tried the downstairs window with the broken lock and found exactly as my friend had mentioned. It slid open effortlessly, so I sneakily crawled into the theater green room and was greeted with 3 big couches from which to choose as my bed that night. I made my way around the place, making sure that there was no one there to discover the trespasser that I was, and found the place to be completely deserted and dark. But the more I looked around, the more the stories started popping into my head, and there was a growing feeling of menace that I started feeling. However, when I checked upstairs, the makeup room that was supposed to have been the scene of most of the sightings I had heard was equally as empty. But more and more, I started feeling creeped out. The feeling was that I was definitely not alone, that I was not welcome there, but I found no one. I was definitely physically alone. I then made my way back to the green room, and the couch that promised my night's resting place, the coziest couch I found, and closed my eyes in preparation for slumber. And the feeling of the menace began to grow. I can't tell you how many times I snapped open my eyes because I was completely convinced that there was someone standing over me. To find that I was alone after all. But the longer I stayed there, the more creeped out I became. The energy was almost palpable. I don't know what that word actually means. Felt my heart racing, felt like the darkness creeping in on me. There was such a strong feeling that something was right there, hovering over me, wanting me out. I kept telling myself that it was all in my head, and I cursed out the people that had told me their stories. Eventually, I forced my way to sleep, I'm assuming. I don't know how long after that it happened, but at some point during the night, I woke up by something, and I can't tell you what. I'm getting shivers running down my body as I type this. Ooh, spooky. Remembering the event. One minute I was deeply asleep, the next I was wide awake and in a panic mode. I was absolutely positive that something was right there. That this something had enough and was going to do me physical harm if I didn't get out. I was in a state of complete panic, at a loss of what to do. Obviously, I couldn't do the prospect of sleeping was no longer viable. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw something. Something definitely moved in the corner of the room, and it seemed to be moving toward me. My breath became I'm assuming that's what it meant, became so shallow. I thought I was going to pass out. My arms and legs felt numb with the cold, and my heart was about to explode from fear. And that's when the noises started. Something upstairs right above me stomped on the ground. Whoever it was, jumping up and down, making sure I heard them. There was a massive crash upstairs, and then the toilet that was on the other side of the room that I was standing in started flushing. Again and again and again. It was non-stop and completely unnatural. And it was completely unnatural. There is no way a toilet could flush itself that many times that quickly, or the water was not being let to empty in the tank before the next set of flushing. That was the final straw. I bolted from the couch I was laying in and don't even remember opening the window to escape that room. The room felt I was trapped in. Before I knew it, I was about a quarter of a mile down the road, gasping for air and clutching my knees. Ended up spending the rest of the night making my way to where I worked and just sitting and waiting for the store to open up so I could try to get my life back in working order. That day, I quit the show and never again stepped foot in that theater, and this is the first time I've ever actually put it down in writing. I've mentioned it to people in passing here and there, but I've never gone into details that I have with this email. Not sure if this is the type of thing that you're looking for. I'm sure there are lots of people that have far more explicit stories than this one that may be best suited for your show. Hey, thanks for the opportunity to share. It was fun going down this memory lane, though I hoped it doesn't cause nightmares tonight. Well, for me, it will not cause nightmares, but for other people, it might. So if you have nightmares, that is awesome. This was a great story, and honestly, I know that you were a skeptic, but now you are not, and those feelings that you had of people hovering over you were probably actually spirits hovering over you, seeing what you're doing. And I know this experience probably changed how you feel about the paranormal. When people have bad experiences at the first time experiencing it, it kind of ruins it for them and they're kind of scared of it. This one, I guess you can say, was pretty frightful, and I understand. Just understand that there is actually nice and good spirits out there and everything that are not out to harm you. So if you ever have another experience, hopefully it's not as scary or as terrifying as this. Also, if you do have any more other stories, or if anybody out there does have any other stories, make sure to go ahead and email me. I'll leave my email down below if you want to email me your story, and I will go ahead and read it on the show. Make sure you leave me all the information I need to know, what your podcast is, leave me your podcast link, and leave me your name of your actual name and your actual podcast name so I can formally call you by your podcast name. Once again, this is by the Skeptic Metaphysician. If you guys want to go ahead and check out their stuff down below, everything will be down in the notes below, down in the description of this in particular episode to his podcast and everything else you guys will need to know. And once again, if you guys want to see the video version of this, of me actually reading the entire story on paper or a document, I guess you can say, go ahead, check down below, go to the YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe, and make sure to read the story yourself if you want to. And also in the description of the YouTube video, I will copy and paste this down in the description if you guys want to go ahead and read it yourself without actually listening to the audio or the video. But if you guys did watch this entire thing, thank you guys so much for joining in on this episode on 3 Dipsticks in a Pod. And once again, make sure you guys go ahead and email me your guys' stories if you guys want it to be heard on this podcast. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for the story, The Skeptic Metaphysician, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.